Hi, I'm Kelly.
I'm Rich.
And we are Wonderbus Adventures. In this week's video, we finally get Wanda home.
Plus, we get on with finishing the floor and cutting the hatch.
We fit some CBE sockets in the garage.
Do a bit of venting.
Rich gets under the bus.
We play tug of war.
And Rich shows some involuntary nervousness.
So we hope you enjoy.
Please leave your comments down below.
Guess who's back? Back again. Bus is back. Tell our friend. So yeah, we've got it back from the garage. I went up in the week to fetch it with Dave. It was nestled away in the garage. I almost forgot what it looked like, to be honest, but it was in there. We went in, had a look at some of the things that were wrong with it, that had already been fixed. So the exhaust downpipe had previously been welded in a couple of places, but it had a big hole in it, so they replaced that. They showed us the brake lines as well, which were just completely deteriorated, and they've all been replaced. And then I drove it home, so that was good. The biggest learning point really is reversing it onto the drive. I did it, but I could do with more mirrors, so I'm going to get those ordered up so I could put 2 mirrors on the side. Now that we've got it back, obviously I can check to see if our electrics cupboard is going to actually fit underneath. Then we can plan out the next steps for that, because just like everything with van build, it seems everything needs to be done in like a specific order. So we might have to mock the cupboard up, get it all together, and then we might need to do something in here before we can install it all. How's it look from your end, YouTube? It's not a bad fit at all. I was worried that I might have made a mistake by not waiting, and I thought I might have had to have scribed up the back, but it fits there perfectly. Just trimmed up the back edge here because I hadn't done it, and underneath here, if you remember, this hatch. So this hatch is so I can service the water tank underneath without having to drop the tank. I need to cut out in the outro this now, because once the box goes on top of it, excuse me, obviously I won't be able to peel back the outro there. So this isn't one of the things that I was planning to do, but I'm going to do now. That's gone all right, so it looks neat enough. I'm happy with that. One job leading to another, I said it earlier, so I am going to take the time actually just to finish the floor now, which is going to require a little bit of woodworking. So I've bought these little handles that can be recessed into the floor. I've just drawn out where they need to go. I'm going to get my router out now, and just create the rectangles that need to go in there. And then you can see in here I've kind of got like a U shape that I need to create for them to go in to sit flush, because I want these to sit flush on the floor. If I do that piece now, then basically what it means is I can glue the outro onto the board. These can go in it and around, and it should look nice and neat is the hope. So yeah, we'll get the router out now and give that a go. What could possibly go wrong? Alright, that's all in now. Pleased with it overall. So that's cut in, I've got handles in, and I can slide that in and out. If you don't remember before, why is this here? So I've got a hatch here, and I can open it, and then here, literally here, is the water tank, and all of the bits, so the filler point, the wiring for the sender, everything is here, so I can access it, and I can take the lid off and clean the tank out and whatnot. And when I'm not using it, I can pop my lid in, and jobs are good. I'm going to crack on now with more of the electrics. So I'm going to take this out, and we're going to drill out the CBE. So the CBE, as mentioned before in a previous video, like modular sockets and other accessories really that you can install, and they're made specifically for campers. A lot of people don't opt for this, they'll go for domestic stuff. Basically you can install it with a hole saw. Let's get into that and see what that looks like. Alrighty, so the CBE sockets we keep going on about. So the triple frame is here now. So you need an inner frame, an outer frame, and the components that go in it, which I'll show you when I install them. Other things you'll need to install, so you know, you need a rule, some masking tape, you need a hole saw, 51 to around 54 millimeters. I say that because different sets come with different ones. I'm doing it with a 51 millimeter. So if this works, we know it works. Other instructions do say use 54. So anything there or thereabouts is going to work, and a drill. And then the process is fairly simple. You just need to decide where you're going to put them. You can take the inner frame, you can overlay it over where your masking tape is. You can basically draw around the inner in here. And then what I did was I measured those squares. So these squares are around 44 mil. And then I took the centers of the square, okay, so 22 mil in from both sides and the other way because it's a square. And then that's going to give me my drill point to go through. So all I need to do now is clamp it up. I'm going to clamp up a piece of wood underneath so it doesn't blow through. I'm going to drill a pilot hole through. Then I'm going to use my hole saw to drill out my hole. Sand up the hole a little bit, like holes are out. That one there could have been a bit neater, but overall we're looking good. So what have we got here? Well, what we have in here, I should say more accurately. So we've got the inner frame on the top. Make sure it goes in the right round. I'm going to have my 3-pin socket. In the middle, I'm going to have an auto 12-volt socket, like your cigarette socket. And at the bottom, I'm going to have my little fuse panel. So they all just pop in the rear frame like that. And then all I'm going to do, make sure I've got it the right way up, is pop that in my holes. Like as so, and then I'm going to place that where I want that to go. Of course I'm going to measure up, and then you pop in 1, 2, 3, 4 self-tapping screws, and that's your sockets mounted. Now obviously I need to wire these up, and that's going to be one of my next jobs. But in terms of mounting those, I quite like that. I think that it's fairly straightforward. You know, I haven't really got to worry about getting a back box in there because this 3-pin one here has its own back box. And I think they look all right. Yeah, personally. So yeah, all good. Right, enough babbling, Richard. Let's get these screwed in. Once I've finished drilling big holes out of this, not only will it be a lot lighter than it is at the moment, but I should be able to hopefully take it in the house to carry on with some of the wire in the evening. I was meant to be tidying up, and I am in a minute, I promise. But I'm just putting in my conduit. I've got these little things as well, so I think I'm going to need a fair few things to cable manage in here. I'm fitting this trunking, and I thought whilst I was putting them in, I'd put some of these in too, just to handle some other cables, but I'm going to be using P-clips as well for the larger diameter cables. I just thought I may as well put these in on here. Now these are plastic, so I didn't want the screws to pull through, and what I've done is I put some penny washers behind the plastic, and I'm putting them in front as well, just so we can sort of sandwich them together, and then that way it shouldn't pull the screw all the way through the conduit. I've got many more holes to drill in this thing yet, so don't worry about all the sawdust. There's going to be a lot more. I need to drill a hole out the side here for all the cable to go out that way. I need to drill a hole at the bottom for the AC cables to enter. So what I'm going to do to keep the DC and the AC separate is all the DC stuff will basically largely end here, apart from a cables that need to come out of the inverter from the battery that will run down in here. The rest of them, the AC, I'm going to run along the wall in behind this and bring it out here and up into the inverter, along here, and then up to where my consumer unit's going to be for it. That way I've kept the AC cables and the DC cables away from each other as far as I can. Sunday morning, and I'm back on the drilling and marking out. So I'd love to just be screwing stuff on and making it look pretty, but before I can do that, I need to think like 5 steps ahead for my setup. Let me know if this is the same for you, really, but yeah, this is just what I'm finding more and more. Okay, so Chris has just been here, and really helpfully we talked over what I was kind of thinking in terms of layout. He's given me some really good ideas, and what I've done, drilled pilot holes out for where the mounting points are for the MPPT and for the Orion DC to DC charger. And what I'm doing now is just marking out where I want to do some cutouts, and then behind that going to have a good chunky sheet of aluminium behind each one, and the fans that I've got in behind will just allow for a little bit of extra cooling. So this aluminium sheet, I've got 2 of them. I'm going to place behind these holes that I've cut out here, and it will act as a heat sink, or an additional heat sink for the Orion and for the MPPT. And then the fans that are behind will cool the space that gets, you know, heated up by this, is the idea. Probably wholly unnecessary, but it does say mount it on material that is not flammable. This definitely is not flammable, so should be good. In addition to this, in the week, I drilled out some holes and cut a big rectangular hole, covered it in these grills to basically allow for some extra cooling above the MPPT and the DC to DC charger that can run hot. Told you this week would be all about the prep, so today I'm actually going to install some cable underneath the van and some grommets underneath the van to bring up a bunch of things that are already in there. So some cable for my battery to battery, some cable for all of my sensors, some cable for the shore power in, and we're going to bring it in through a junction box. Reason why I'm doing that next might seem like a strange order, but it's going to allow me to drill a hole in the floor in where this can come up and enter the electricity box. I'm going to put the box in and then not be able to run our cable, so it makes sense to do all this first. So yeah, I mean, hopefully it's not too boring for you, but like I said, we're documenting this just to show what it's like, but also hopefully it's helpful. So these are things that you need to do. You need to run all of these cables otherwise you're stuffed basically. My battery to battery is obviously running from the battery box at the front all the way to the back, so I need a hefty old cable, but not too hefty. And the reason being, for me, it's running down the 24 volt side and then being converted to 12 volt all the way at the back. So for my installation, I only need a cable that will basically carry the 30 amps without voltage drop all the way from the front to the back. I'm going for 16mm cable, which is more than enough to do that. And I've found this cool stuff. So this is like twin flex, but for really heavy duty like battery type cable. And it's really heavily insulated. So I'm just going to check that I've got a long enough length of this now, and then make a little loom up in some conduit. And that's exactly what we did. Kelly even came out with her towel on her head.
Okay, take it straight.
Of course, it started to rain. I'm just going to feed the cable up to the battery box, actually via where the air source comes in for the handbrake. Pass it up through here, and then I'll end up drilling a neat hole through here when I install it. Whilst I'm under here patting one of my wastewater tanks, I'm actually going to run a couple more cables. I'm going to run one 2-core wire for my tank sensor. I'm going to run some wire down here as well for my valve that I'm going to run off of this, just so it's here. I'm not doing anything with this tank right now, but because I want to run all these cables up to the end point, I want them all to come through the floor now and to have a nice neat run and not have to worry about it later on down the line. Right, so on my mat underneath the bus, it is rather uncomfortable, but I brought the mat under. I've got everything I need in the box. Getting in here, I've stretched my shoulder and hurt myself, but I'm in here now. Why am I in here? The main reason is I need to extend these cables. So if you've been with us all the way since the start, which is about 4 million years ago now, you'll remember that this water tank here, I ran a bunch of wiring in for various senders and things in here, to include, so this wire in here is for the gas solenoid, so we can switch it off remotely inside. This wire here is for our diesel heater, and then I've got a couple of smaller wires here for the gas sender, and they're all quite short, so silly old Rich really. And the main reason being is I was planning on literally bringing them up here under the bed in the conduit, which is going to run along the front of the bed. And I could still do that, but because we're designing and we've built this electrics cupboard, our servo is going to be in that cupboard, and these sender wires and level wires and all of that stuff plug into that. So it makes sense actually for me to extend these now, push them up through the same entry as the battery to battery wiring that I've already run. Thankfully the rest of these cables under here are all long enough to already do that, and they're labelled so I can remember what they are. Kelly's just out there in her position feeding this stuff off, just putting it into the rack. And I'm gonna tag it along the floor, along here. Alrighty, so the cables are all tidy-ish now, and I've put, all P-clips in underneath. This little box here is a weather-resistant box, and I'm just cutting the grommets out to match the size that I need for the cables that are coming through here, so I've got quite a few. And then in the back I've drilled a 38mm hole out of it, and you're probably thinking, well, that won't be very watertight or airtight, will it? And what I'm going to do is file the bits off the back and actually seal it to the bottom of the floor, so the hole that comes out will correspond to this hole here, And basically we should have a nice neat entry for all of the cables that we got under here, because we've got a lot to come up in here. Everywhere else on the van will have plenty of ventilation, but here really we don't want too much because of the diesel heater. So the next cable I've got to go in is the battery to battery. I think what I'm going to do is actually split this and bring it up separately, but I might see if I can push it through one hole. These actually will accommodate up to 25mm cable. You just have to be careful with how you cut them out. So how I've been doing it, you can see here, I've actually drilled that out just with a drill bit slowly, just so it can seal in and around. And then drilled a hole in my perfectly good floor. Let me tell you, drilling a hole for a perfectly good floor is nerve-wracking. However, I think we have succeeded. Oh, pardon me. Alright, so the box is in now. All the cables are run up to the bottom of the bus, and I've even put the cable in ready for our shore power in. Haven't 100% decided where I'm going to put that yet, but I'm thinking that a neat place might be on the back where the spare wheel hole is. I figured it actually might look, you know, a bit like a tow bar hole. In reality, we are hoping not to use shore power, but we've got the option there should we need it, and that seems like a sensible place to put it. We have genuinely got so much done in terms of like prep for now and prep for the future. You know, we've got all of our wires run now under the bus, not all of them connected to the things they need to be connected to, but they're terminated in the right place to be able to do that. So yeah, reflective rich. I think I just need to be me versus me really, and try not to, you know, I guess be too competitive against myself, because it's only me that I need to beat here. I don't need to be quicker than anyone else. I need to do it at my own pace, and genuinely I'm going as fast as I can. And today I haven't filmed a lot, and you probably think, there's not a lot gone on there, but I've done so much, and I'm so pleased that the building blocks are there now.
We're really happy with how much we've managed to get done this week.
Really glad that the bus is back, really glad that this thing actually fits, and that we've got the majority of our sort of pre-wiring done.
We think. Thank you for sticking with us.
Have a great week, guys.
See you next time. 1, 2, 3.
Bye.